Shekalim. We're going to make a siyum this week. We're going to read and learn as best as we can the next Mishnayos till the end of the Masechta. As we spoke about last week and the week before, Masechta Shekalim has moved on to many different subjects that are not related to the Maseches HaShekel. It all started with what happens if you find Maseches HaShekel in the Beis HaMikdash. There were 13 shofarot of pushkas. There were 13 pushkas in the Beis HaMikdash where people put money in for different reasons. A person finds a coin on the floor next to the Maseches HaShekel pushka, and next to the new Maseches HaShekel, the old Maseches HaShekel, two different pushkas, and he finds the coin there. Which pushka does it go into? So we had a question of where does this money go into? And then we came upon a question: what happens if you find meat on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash? Is it kachei kadoshim? Is it kachei kalim? Then we went into the question: what happens if you find a live animal in the Migdal Eder area around Yerushalayim? What do you do with that animal? From there, we came up with a subject. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi had a subject. If the finder of the animal brings it to the Beis HaMikdash for a carbon, who pays for the nesachim, for the oil? From there, we came to a whole list of 7 takonos that were made about how to spend money of Maseches HaShekel. And from there, we moved on to new subjects in this parak, the last parak of Shekalim Parak Ches, about things in the streets. You find things in the streets of Yerushalayim. And because we're talking about streets of Yerushalayim, so we got into the subject, there's saliva in the streets of Yerushalayim. Is it tameh or tahor? From there we went to what happens if you find vessels in the streets of Yerushalayim. From there we went into what happens if you find a knife in the streets of Yerushalayim on the 13th day of Nisan or the 14th day of Nisan or the 15th day of Nisan. Can you use it for a carbon pesach? And that's where we're up to right now. It's page 66 in your Mishnayos. And for here, for the Mishnayos are now going to go into some halachas of Tumah and Tahara, which are way beyond, as all of you know, way beyond anything we can get into in any depth. There's a whole Seder Mishnayos called Taharas. One of the 6 Sidorim in Mishnayos. The last one is called Taharas. It's a very long Seder Mishnayos with many Masechtas in it, and it talks about Tumah and Tahara. As I mentioned last week, people can ask thousands of questions about Tumah and Tahara, and there are probably very few answers to all the questions. Because as the Rambam explains to us when he deals with the halachas of Tumah and Tahara, all of these things are chukim. They are all laws passed, all laws that the Rebbeinu Shalom commanded us to do. They have no human logic to them. So a person can send me a question or send someone a question and say, I don't understand why if a person touches a dead rat, one of the Shmoyne Shuratzim, he goes to the mikveh and that night he becomes tahor. I don't understand why he doesn't need the ash of the paraduma sprinkled on him. And why shouldn't he have to wait 7 days like someone who touched a dead body? I don't understand why you shouldn't have to pour a sprinkled paraduma on someone that touched a dead rat. And the answer is, I don't understand it either, and let's go weiter. These are psukim, these are gzeiros from the Rebbeinu Shalom. So in order to explain the next Mishnayos, I'm going to give you what I hope to be a 2 or 3 minute introduction to the basic of what we need to know to understand this Mishnah. The worst level of Tumah is a dead body. A dead body is called Avi Avois HaTumah. The granddaddy, that's what Chazal called it. Avi Avois HaTumah. The father of the father, the grandfather, the grandpapa of all Tumah. The worst Tumah is a dead body. A person that touches a dead body goes down 1 level. He becomes an Av HaTumah, a daddy to Tumah. If he touches something, and when I say something, it could be, for example, a vessel. He touches a frying pan. The frying pan also becomes tamei, but the frying pan is now called a rishon, the first level of tumah. And it keeps on going down, and it becomes, there's a sheni and there's a shlishi, and we can go into these rules for hours, but we're not going to go into them. The point is that tumah, as it touches or comes into contact with something else, goes down a level. So let's take the case that the Mishnah is going to talk about. Dead rat, shmona shratzim. There are 8 particular types of these little animals that if they die and you come into contact with them, a person becomes tamei. We always use the case of a dead rat. Dead rat, you touch it, it comes into contact with you. The dead rat is an av hatumah. A person that comes into contact with a dead rat is now one level down. He's a rishon. He's the first level. The rat is the av, the papa, and the person becomes a rishon. Now here's an important rule for rishon. A rishon can be metame ochel umashkin. It cannot be metame odam v'kelim. Person touches a dead rat, he becomes a rishon. He touches his frosted flakes, the frosted flakes are now tamei. He touches his orange juice is tamei. He touches another human being, that other human being is not tamei. A rishon can cause food and water to become tamei, but it cannot cause a man, a human being, or a vessel to become tamei. A sheretz, the daddy of tumah, let's forget about mes, sheretz, dead rat. Dead rat touches a human being, makes it tamei. Dead rat touches food, makes it tamei. Dead rat touches liquid, becomes tamei. Dead rat touches the frying pan, it becomes tamei. Finished. Dead rat touches man, the man's tamei. Man touches a frying pan, not tamei. Man touches orange juice, not tamei. I'm sorry, man touches orange juice, tamei. Man, that rat touches man, man is a rishon. The man touches a vessel or another person, not tamei. The man touches food or liquid is tamei. The food and liquid is tamei. Okay. Now what we need to understand is the paroches, the curtain in the Beis HaMikdash. The curtain in the Beis HaMikdash is not food or liquid. What is the curtain in the Beis HaMikdash? It's not a human being. It's not food. It's not drink. It's a vessel. A vessel doesn't have to just be a frying pan. It's a vessel. It's an article. It's a curtain. It's considered a vessel. Frying pans, curtains, these things are vessels. A pair of pans, they're vessels. They fall under the category kalim. So now the Mishnah says, if you take a look at the bottom of page, we're on page 66, there's a picture of it. Here, there's a little exception to the rule I just told you. For whatever reason, Chazal, what I just said to you are the biblical rules. Sheretz is the papa of tumah. That papa, if it comes into contact with a man, the man is tamei, and he's called the rishon, or as this Mishnah is going to call it, avlad. He's baby. The dead rat is the papa tumah. If the dead rat touches a human being, the human being is baby tumah. The papa sheretz gave birth to the baby tumah. The papa tumah gave birth to a baby tumah. The sheretz is the av. The human being is a vlad. He's the baby. In other language, in other ways, we say the baby is called the rishon. He's number one. And the question is, can number one make a number two? Number one, the human being. Sheretz, av, touches human being. The human being is now a baby. He's called a number one. He's not a papa. He's a number one. Biblically, if number one touches Adam or Kalim, he cannot make it Tomei, but he can make Ochlin and Mashkin, food and drink Tomei. That food and drink cannot then make anything else Tomei from a biblical standpoint. Rabbinically, for reasons we're not going to go into, midrabanan, liquids can still propagate further tumah, for whatever reason. Not food, liquids, yes. Okay. So now what's our case? Our case is going to be the following. The Mishnah says, Paroiches, one of the curtains in the Beis HaMikdash. There are 13 curtains in the Beis HaMikdash. We learned about this in Masechta Midos. There are 13 curtains in the Beis HaMikdash. Where are there 13 curtains? There's a curtain, there are 7 entryways into the Azorah. Remember, we have 5 entryways into the Har Habayis. One is the eastern gate, Shushan Habira. One is the western gate, Kipunus. One is the northern gate, Teddy, and 2 gates to the south, Share Hulda. Those are the entryways into the Har Habayis. Now you're in Har Habayis, you want to walk into either the Ezras Nashim or into the Azorah itself. The Azorah itself, without the Ezras Nashim, the Azorah itself has 7 openings. Each of those openings has a door, and the door has a curtain in front of it. So those are 7 curtains. On top of those curtains, there's a curtain in front of the door of the Heichal. That's 8. There's a curtain in front of that huge opening of the Ulam. That Ulam had no door, only a curtain. That's 9. The separation between the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Aron, had 2 curtains. That's 11. The attic right above the Kodesh Kadoshim had 2 curtains right above the 2 curtains that were below in the Heichal. That's 13. There are 13 curtains in the Beis HaMikdash. One of these curtains became Tameh. How did it become Tameh? So if you take a look at page 66 in the Mishnah, there's a picture number 88. However this happens, you have a paroches, you have a bowl, and in the bowl is Tameh. What does it mean that the bowl is Tameh? Can a bowl be an Av Hatuma? Very difficult. We're only talking about here sheretz. The bowl came into contact with a dead rat. The dead rat is the Av. What's that bowl? The baby. It's the Rishon. What's inside the baby? Orange juice. What's the orange juice? Orange juice is a sheni. Truthfully, biblically, that liquid, that orange juice cannot make that curtain tameh. It can't do it biblically. Midrabanan, that liquid, that orange juice can make that paroches tameh. For whatever reason, Chazal were more machmir and made a gzeira on liquid, not on food, but on liquid. So take a look at the picture. You have a bowl. The bowl touched a sheretz, and the bowl is now baby 1. The liquid in there is baby 2. Biblically, that baby 2 orange juice cannot do anything to the paroches. Rabbinically, the paroches is now tameh. What do we do with this paroches? We got to do something with it. Should I take it out of the Beis HaMikdash? Anything that becomes tameh, we take it down, we get it out of the Beis HaMikdash as quickly as possibly, and we bring it to a mikveh. Is this an emergency here to get this paroches out? The answer is not such a big emergency, because biblically there's nothing wrong with this paroches. It's only rabbinically it became tameh. So the Mishnah says paroches shenitmis b'vlada tumah, a paroches that became tameh with a baby tumah. Madbilan also bifnim, you're allowed to be toivel the paroiches in the Beis Hamikdash. Remember, we learned, for example, that there's a mikvah. We learned about multiple mikvahs that were inside the Beis Hamikdash. You don't have to schlep this paroiches outside the Beis Hamikdash. You can leave it in the Beis Hamikdash, and you can take it to a mikvah in the Beis Hamikdash and be toivlet in the Beis Hamikdash, umachnisin osomiyad. And right after it comes out of the mikvah and it's dry, you can hang it back up. Remember, Rabbi said we talked about Herev Shemesh. There's somebody called a Tvul Yoin. A human being came into contact with a sheretz. 10:30 in the morning. A human being came into contact with a sheretz. He's not allowed to walk into the Beis Hamikdash. He goes to the mikveh at 10:45. He's called a Tvul Yoin. He immersed himself in the mikveh during the day, and he has a new status. And he can do certain things and go certain places, but can't go into other places. Why? Because the Torah requires Herev Shemesh. The Torah requires that the person, after he went to mikveh during the day, he's not fully tahor until sunset, or we won't get into that sugya, barachas, tafbeis, etc. That's where it starts. He cannot go into the Beis Hamikdash until after sunset or nightfall. So he touched the sheretz today at 10:30. He's tummy, period. He goes to the mikveh 10:45. He's now called a Tvul Yoin. He dunked today. He still can't go into the Beis Hamikdash proper until after nightfall tonight. That's called Herev Shemesh. This is also true for vessels. A vessel, your frying pan touched a sheretz today. 10:30, your frying pan came into contact with a dead sheretz. You bring it to the mikveh 10:45. That frying pan is called a Tvul Yoin. It's not fully tahor. It's not ritually pure for all purposes until after sunset or nightfall tonight. It needs Herev Shemesh. Here the Mishnah says that if picture 688 on page 66 occurs, the paroiches touches liquid that's in a bowl. So the stuma is only rabbinic. You can take the paroiches down. You don't have to rush it out of the Beis Hamikdash. You can keep it in the Beis Hamikdash. It's only rabbinically tummy. Take it to a mikveh in the Beis Hamikdash and hang it up right away. You don't have to wait till nightfall tonight. You can immediately hang it back up because it's a rabbinic tumah and doesn't require that sunset rule. That's the first rule of the Mishnah. Let me back up a little. People may be wondering, who really cares if my fry pan, I'm living in the time, and Yet Shem today, Beis Hamikdash, Mamish, it's coming right now. Mashiach is Mamish, going to knock on the door right, Mamish today. And Lubling has his fry pan, and his fry pan becomes tummy. I'm not a Kohen. I'm not a Levi. My fry pan touched a dead rat. And my wife says to me, Aaron, Achen Vei, that brand new fry pan, that ceramic fry pan, you know, that safe one, we got rid of the Teflon stuff, that brand new expensive ceramic fry pan, a dead rat touched it. So what would my reaction be? Ich bin nicht a Kohen, ich bin nicht a Levi, I'm not a Kohen, not a Levi, just put it back on the shelf and make me my eggs, please. So you need to understand that in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, and for years after that, there was something called people who were oichel chulin b'tahara. People were makbid to eat even their chulin. They were not kohanim, certainly kohanim. Kohanim have to be careful with their trumas meiser, and Levim with their meiser, all good zaken. But there were people, Yisraelim, who would not eat food unless it was Torah. They were makbid in Hilchas Tahara. If food was tamei, they didn't eat it. If a frying pan was tamei, they wouldn't cook in it until they took it to the mikveh. So you need to understand that when we talk about the frying pan came into contact with a dead sheretz. Is was lo mishaneh? I'm not a kohen, I'm not a Levi. What do you want from me? It is mishaneh. There was a good percentage. We don't know how many. Yes, we're only dealing right now with a dead sheretz. It could be a dead body. It could be a nida. It could be a zav. It could be a zava. We can't learn Masechta. We can't learn Seder Tahara. So we're giving the easy case, which is the case that the Rav and the Mefarshim deal with here, because this Masechta Shekalim and these sugyas come up only parenthetically, so to speak. So yes, Mishaneh. My frying pan touched a dead rat. And now, if this is a family that eats chulim b'tahara, I don't want anyone making me scrambled eggs in that fry pan until it becomes tahara, which means the fry pan has to go to the mikveh, and after it goes to the mikveh, I have to wait till sunset, nightfall tonight, and then we can use that fry pan. Okay, so that's the first halach in the Mishnah. The curtain in the Beis Hamikdash that came into contact with a baby tumah, your picture 88. Matbil Naisa B'fnim, you can use a mikveh inside B'fnim. You can use one of the mikvahs in the Azorah. Umachnis Naisa miyad, and right after you toivel it, you can hang it right back up. You don't have to wait till sunset. Why? Because we're dealing with a rabbinic tumah. Veshenit mispa'av hatumah. But what happens if the paroiches got tomei through the papa tumah? It happened. A dead sheretz came into contact with the paroiches. So in picture 88, instead of looking at the paroiches touching liquid that's in a bowl, you have a dead rat touching the paroiches. That paroiches is now biblically tomei. What do? You have to be more machmer. It's biblically tomei. Matbilan oisa b'chutz, you have to take off the paroiches and get it out of the azara, get it out, because you cannot leave tumah in the Beis Hamikdash. You got to get it out. You can't just take it down and be toivel it in the azara like in the first case. We're talking about biblical tumah here. Take it down, get it out of the Beis Hamikdash, and be toivel it outside the Beis Hamikdash. V'shoichin oisa b'cher, and now that you toiveled it, it has to dry out somewhere. You can't hang it back up right away. Why? Because this is biblical tumah. What does biblical tumah require? Before you can use it again, what do you have to do? You have to wait till nightfall. So what am I going to do with the paroiches? I took it down because it's biblically tamei. I took it out of the Beis Hamikdash. I was toivel it. I can't use it yet till nightfall. So what do? You spread it out in the chel. Rabbi say, where's the chel? Oh, Masechta Midas. You walk in to the Har HaBayis from the eastern gate, if using the eastern gate, the Shushan Avira. You walk up into the Har HaBayis. You're walking towards west, east to west, and you come across a low fence, a soreg, and that soreg had signs on it that Gentiles may not pass this point. That little fence of 10 tefachim high. And after that fence, there was an area of 10 amos wide called the chel. And in the chel, there were 12 steps. And you walked up those 12 steps and you walked into the eastern gate of the Ezras Noshim. So where did you spread out the curtain? Bachel. You spread it out in that open space between the soreg and the opening to the Ezras Noshim. Or there's a chel, usually, according to most Mefarshim, all around the Azorah. Let's see, I think they even gave you a picture of this in your Mishnayos. We had, if you remember, a famous diagram in Masechta Midos. Yeah, page 44. Page 44 in your Mishnayos has the picture of the Beis Hamikdash. That's the picture, page 44. You walk into the Shah Shushan on the east. You walk in there. You can see that there's a soreg. Right? You see the word soreg. It's a wall. And behind the soreg, you see there's a place called Chel. And in that area is where they would spread out the curtain that became biblically tameh until nightfall. And here the Mishnah says an interesting thing. What happens if this paroches became biblically tameh? You get it out of the Beis Hamikdash, you toivel it, you don't hang it up until nightfall. And where do you spread it out? You spread it out in the Chel. The Mishnah now says, same case. V'im hoisa chadasha, but if this paroches was brand new, they would be constantly, every so often, they would be making new paroches. They would be sewing new ones so that they would be fresh and new. In fact, the two paroches that we used for the separate the heichal, the kodesh from the kodesh kadashim, there were two curtains. They made those two curtains twice a year. Every 6 months they changed them so that there were beautiful new curtains between the kodesh and the kodesh hakadashim. So let's make believe that it's brand new. It's mamish brand new and it's still shiny, and a dead sheretz came into contact with it. You toivel it, but you can't hang it back up. So the Mishnah said that you spread it out in the chel until nightfall. The Mishnah now says, but if it's a beautiful new curtain, we instead of spreading it out in the chel, we're going to spread it out on the itztava. If you take a look on page 67, picture 90, that's the itztava. Itztava are like, around the walls of the Har Habayis, they were like, looks like, lost my English.
An awning.
The kind of thing you have in a baseball stadium, where you can sit on. One is higher than the other. You see it in picture 90. So they built this all around.
A bleacher?
Stands.
Bleachers. Eliezer Shkoyach, bleachers. So they had these, looks like bleachers all around the walls of the Har Habayis. And the top of these bleachers, they had a semi-roof to protect people from the sun and from the rain. So if it was a brand new paroches that was still shiny and beautiful, and they had to dry it somewhere because it was biblically tameh, instead of putting it in the chel, where not so many people would see it, they put it on top of the itztava, so that anyone that walked into the Har Habayis can see how beautiful the paroches would have been bought with tzibur money, Maseches HaShekel money, and to show people, look at the beautiful paroches that was bought, that was all the material was bought, the workmen were paid. Look at the beautiful paroches that many times people didn't get a chance to see. This is the beauty of your paroches. Interesting halacha. If it's a new shiny paroches, hang it up on the itztava instead of the chel, let it dry out there. I'm going to read the next Mishnah very quickly. It's a difficult Mishnah to understand unless you're some kind of weaver or tailor and you understand this. Here we go. You can see how we started off about 2 or 3 weeks ago. What happens is if you find a Maseches HaShekel on the floor in the Azora between two pushkis, what pushka does it go into? And as I explained at the beginning of today's share, from there we went to, if you find meat on the floor, from there we went to find an animal, whenever you find a knife, whenever you find that there's and then we got into what happens if you step into saliva, do you become tameh? From there we went to other tumah, went from there to other tumah. Now, since we talked about the paroches, what happens if the paroches becomes tameh? Now we're going to talk some more about the paroches. So this is how Masechta Shekalim ends. So Rav Shimon Mishnah Perek Ches Mishnah Ches, and this is on page 67. I'm sorry, Perek Ches Mishnah Hey, It's on Perek 67 of your Mishnayos. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel oy Mishum Mishim ben Askan. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says name of Shimon, the son of the Skan, the assistant Kohen Gadol. Paroiches of your tefach. The paroiches, in all probability, this Mishnah is talking about a specific paroiches. Every opening in the Harabayas and every opening in the Azorah was 20 amos high by 10 amos wide, with one exception. The opening to the Ulam was double. It was 40 amos high and 20 amos wide. The largest opening in the Harabayas Beis Hamikdash, the Ulam. And the Ulam had no doors, it only had a curtain. It's 40 high and 20 wide. In all probability, you'll see when we read this Mishnah, it's talking about that paroches. There are 13 curtains in the Beis Hamikdash, as we explained earlier today. This Mishnah seems to address the curtain of the Ulam. So Rav Shimon ben Gamliel oy Mishum Mishim ben Askan, paroches avia tefach. The thickness of this curtain is a tefach. Give or take, it's about 4 inches thick. That's a pretty thick curtain. When you talk about a curtain in your dining room, a curtain in your living room, a 4-inch thick curtain is, I don't know if I've ever seen a 4-inch curtain, the thickness of a curtain, 4 inches, someone's living room or dining room. That's a very thick curtain. The curtain of the Ulam was a tefach thick. Why? So the Mishnah is now going to give us a calculation. I don't understand this calculation, so I can't explain it. I can read it. There are all kinds of different explanations in the Mefarshim how you get to this thickness, and this has to do with the knowledge of weaving the horizontal threads, the vertical threads. The Mishnah says, "Va'al shivim ushtayim." For those who learn Maseches Shabbos, there's a whole sugya Maseches Shabbos about oreg, weaving on Shabbos. And there the Mishnah also, when you learn Daf Yomi, if you're learning Daf Yomi, it's very hard to do a blot in ha'oreg in one day because you need a whole picture book to explain what an old-time weaving machine looked like. There was, I forgot his name, there was a Yid in America who used to go around America when the Daf Yomi was up to ha'oreg, which happened months ago in this cycle. He would go around America, he was some kind of professional weaver, and he had a book. And he would go from community to community during that week and give a video show, a video explanation of what the Gemara is talking about with this horizontal, the vertical, how they used to throw, they used to have a piece of wood that they used to throw, a ganze Maisa. So here the Mishnah is explaining to us what the paroiches was made of. The thing that we need to know is threads were made into threads. What does that mean? The Torah says that the paroches was made out of 4 materials. The paroches was made out of, it was made out of tchelis, argomon, teilashoni, v'sheish. A blue wool, a purple wool, a scarlet, a red wool, and linen. So you take, and this is called kafel shisha. You take six strands of each of these materials, and you wind them together. So I have 4 materials. So I take 6 strands of the blue, 6 strands of the purple, 6 strands of the red, 6 strands of the linen, and I roll them together somehow, and I make now 1 strand. But this 1 strand has how many strands in it? 24. 4 different kinds of strands, 6 of each of them rolled together. Each strand is now 24. So the Mishnah says, "Va'al shivim ushtayim nimin nereges." It was the word nimin, according to some Mefarshim, simply means the thicker strands. 72 of these thicker strands. What does that mean? Each strand is 24 in it. And now from that 24, you take 72 of these 24s and you wrap them around or weave them together. So each strand is 24, because if 4 materials times 6 is 24, you take 72 of these things, you somehow bring them together by weaving, and now you're ready 72 and 72 and 72, and you have to make that width and height 20 wide, 40 high. The Mishnah says, every one of these threads had 24 strands in them. That's where the number 24 comes from. 4 materials, 6 of each material. Each thread has 24 strands in it. Arka aboyim amma v'rachba esrim amma. That's why we assume this Mishnah is talking about the curtain of the ulam. It says it's 40 high and 20 wide. The only parochas that had that size was the one to the ulam. The others were 20 by 10. The next words in the Mishnah, there are different girsois. There are different ways that the Mishnah has been printed in different girsois. Ushmoinim ushtei riboy nasis. It was made out of 8. The simple way to read the Mishnah is it was made out of, by the way, if you want to see pictures of what I'm talking about, they're on page 68, pictures 91, 92, and 93. They're showing you in picture 91 the paroches. It's thick. It's 72 of these threads. Picture 92 is showing you what a thread would look like. And picture 93 is showing you that each one of these threads is made up of 6 strands of each material. That's the basic picture. And now the Mishnah uses the number 820,000. That's a lot. The Mishnah says, Umishmoinim ushtei riboy nasis. All the threads in total, I don't know how to do this math, and the Mefarshim don't really explain it. All the strands inside the parochas of the ulam, there were 820,000 strands, however you do the math. I don't know how to do the math. There's another gears in the Mishnah that ribo should be revoked, and it means instead of 820,000, the word ribo is taken out, and the word revolt is putting in. Revolt means young girls. It took 82,000 young girls to sew this thing or weave this thing together. That's what the Mishnah says. Ushtayim oisim b'chol shana, and they would make 2 of these every year. So this sounds like we're talking about the ulam. We've been talking about the 40 by 20 curtain. The 40 by 20 curtain is for the ulam. So it sounds like they made 2 curtains for the ulam every year. Yet the Rambam explains that the 2 paroches that were made every year were for the Kodesh Kadoshim. Again, I don't exactly understand how you figure out this Mishnah, but that's how the Mishnah reads according to different Mefarshim. Ushlosh meos kohanim matbilen osa. If this paroches of the ulam, now this is double the size. Every paroches of the 13 curtains in the Beis Hamikdash, 12 were 20 by 10. The ulam was 40 by 20, and its thickness is 4 inches. So if you think about 40 paroches is 40 amos high, and it's 40 amos high and 20 amos wide. You're talking about 40 amos high. You're talking about maybe 90 feet high, 20 feet wide. You're talking about maybe 50 feet. You're talking about a curtain that's about 90 feet high, 50 feet wide, and 4 inches thick, that has all these material in it. And this thing becomes tomei chas v'shalom. And it becomes, you got to take it to a mikveh. Who's going to carry this thing to the mikveh? So the Mishnah says you needed 300 kohanim to carry it to the mikveh to be toivel. Now you can imagine the size of the mikveh to be toivel this thing. But the Mishnah says you need 300 kohanim. The Gemara comments on this statement, 300 kohanim, that in fact you didn't need 300 kohanim. It was less than that. The number 300 does not mean exactly 300. Could 299 do it? Sometimes maybe it needed 302. How do you know how many Kohanim needed? Maybe it takes 280 strong Kohanim and 410 weak Kohanim. What's this number 300? So the Mishnah says the number 300 just means that you needed a lot of Kohanim. It doesn't mean exactly 300. It means you needed a lot of Kohanim because of the size and the weight of this paraychas. And from here, we see a rule that Tosfos talks about in Masechta Brachos, that when the Mishnah or the Gemara in different places use a specific number, which sounds like extravagant, like how do you get to that number? Or how do you get that precise number? Maybe it's 299, maybe it's 305. When the Mishnah, the Gemara uses these kind of numbers, the Mishnah doesn't mean, or the Gemara doesn't mean this precise number. It means it was so heavy that it needed a tremendous amount of people to be toivlet, and this rule carries over to different places in the Mishnah and in the Gemara. Okay, so that's our Masechta Shekalim for today. As you can see, we're almost at the end of the Masechta. The next two Mishnayos will continue to deal with Tum and Tahara, and we'll deal with it as best we can. And the last Mishnah goes back and ends with sort of a subject of the Machzis HaShekel. So Blined will make a siyum on Masechta Shekalim this week. How we proceed from there, and when we proceed from there, and what kind of Mishnayos we need from there, we will see. I've made several inquiries at the Svarim store through Binyamin to find something, a Mishnayos Shavias that would have English translation to it. We're working on that. It looks like that there's a Mishnayos Kahati, the famous Kahati Mishnayos, which has Masechta Shavias with his Kahati translation that's been translated from Hebrew to English. And that's about 45, 50 shekel. And we'll see if that works. I'm going to see if he has a copy of it. That's what he showed me last week, not Shavias, a different Masechta.